This is Pete Fletzer. Join us as we talk to Eric Walker from the legendary Ewok films.
Well, I was the boy in Caravan of Courage, the Ewok movie. Who would have known I would be talking about this 30-something years later?
You're listening to Around the Galaxy.
Welcome to episode number 113 of Around the Galaxy, the Star Wars fan talk show. I am your host, Pete Fletzer. Thank you so much for joining us. If this is your first visit with Around the Galaxy, well, thank you so much for checking this out. We hope you enjoy yourself. And hey, if you do me a favor. Like, subscribe, share, rate, review, tell a friend, tell a family member, tweet about us. I don't know, just let somebody know, hey, I have found a Star Wars fan talk show that I really enjoy. It's called Around the Galaxy. You can follow us on Twitter at ATGcast, or you can go to our website at atgcast.com. And hey, listen, if you are interested in supporting this show and want to be a part of the live stream virtual studio audience when we record these shows, and maybe even be part of the conversation, join us in our Patreon offering at patreon.com/ATGcast. Memberships start at just $3 a month, and at that entry level, you gain that access I just talked about. And as you go up, there's other perks, other opportunities, meet and greets, and special merch, and all kinds of great stuff. But check that out. You can find it at atgcast.com, or you can go straight to patreon.com/atgcast. Well, this week I am so excited to bring you a conversation that I was privileged to have with Mr. Eric Walker. Eric Walker played Mace Towani on the legendary Caravan of Courage, and he was in about 9 minutes of the battle for Endor before he was brutally murdered by the Marauders. Spoiler alert. Sorry, I hope I didn't ruin that for you. But now, without further ado, I am excited to speak to Mr. Eric Walker on Around the Galaxy. Eric, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Hi, thanks for having me, Pete, on Around the Galaxy. I'm excited to be here. And as you could see, so are all my Star Wars influenced toys.
I was going to say, it's like a museum of Black Series behind you. That's amazing.
I love the Black Series the most, 6-inch figures. And we do on All for Sci-Fi, you mentioned, we do unboxing videos. So recently we were just doing Crosshair and another one. Here's Crosshair, the Bad Batch.
Nice.
And I did this unboxing video.
Yes.
So there's Mr. Din Djarin himself.
Yes. I did one as well. I got him back here. It's one of the, all the Black Series stuff always just amazes me how much details in it and how great it looks.
Yes, they do a great job. Yep.
I was, as my listeners know, I was a big Funko guy, and I've started to get out of it because there's just too many, and I've started into the Black Series. And the challenge that I have, Eric, is I have an 8-year-old son. Right. Who wants to play with all the Black Series. So I'm ending up buying 2 at a time sometimes. I just got, General Gree, I think is his name.
Right.
The clone trooper. Yeah, yes. Right. So I had to get 2 because my son wanted one. And I look at my son's collection of all unopened piles of stormtroopers and clone troopers. I'm like, man, he's the one having fun with them.
He's living an awesome life, isn't he? And I try to get 2 so we could do an unboxing as well, so have a lot of things, like here's the
plush Babu Frick. Yeah.
Whoa! Droids, remember, go blank, 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 blank.
That's awesome. So, Eric, this is very cool because we are able to talk to you after the Ewok films have been brought back to the public eye. They're no longer, you have to find them on YouTube or find the DVD somewhere and go to eBay to get them. They're now publicly available, and you were at the center of that whole thing. So let's just start. Let me just ask you, how do you, as somebody who was in this, it's now 35 years ago. I hate to say that. That just feels so darn.
I know. I was the boy in Caravan of Courage, the Ewok movie, and I'm 51 now. If that's saying something, who would have known I would be talking about this 30-something years later? But I was disappointed because I heard Kathleen Kennedy. Mm-hmm. I was watching a live stream from Celebration.
Yeah.
And I heard her say that Disney Plus was going to be the home to all of Star Wars. Well, Guess what? Where are the Ewok movies? Where are the Droids cartoon? and so forth. And big Star Wars fans would want the holiday special. Of course, Lucasfilm doesn't want that.
Yeah.
And I can understand why they didn't produce it. But if Disney Plus is home to all of Star Wars, like Kathleen Kennedy said, Lucasfilm produced these. These were produced by Lucasfilm, and George Lucas wrote the story. And he directed. He didn't admit it for 20 years, but he actually directed the reshoot of Caravan of Courage, because the director John Cordy had a prior commitment and couldn't be there for the reshoots. You know how?
Oh wow! I did not know that. That's amazing.
Yeah, and that just came out recently because there's a Star Wars archive book, and there's a picture of George Lucas directing me in one of the scenes in the book.
Oh wow!
So that's it's been quite a journey, and I'm glad. So my challenge was, hey Kathleen, you said it's home to all of Star Wars. Well, where are the Ewok movies I was in? So
right.
So we started a petition, and we got it out there, and it got 5,000 signatures.
Wow.
So that made them, hey, wait a minute here. What are we doing? So plus, with COVID happening, I think COVID had a lot to do with that, and having less production going on in the industry.
Sure.
They needed more content. So I'm happy they did it. So yes, the Ewok movies are on Disney Plus, and they look good. They did a good job.
Well, that was to me, that was one of the reasons I was most excited they were coming back was not, first of all, I was excited that they were finally, and a handful of vintage things are starting to be, not recognized as canon. That's a whole other conversation, but at least recognized as having been part of the storytelling and part of the history of Star Wars. And I was most excited to be able to watch it in the best possible cut of it. As as I said before, there's the YouTube bootlegs, and then there's the various levels of DVD, but this is the best looking version of it we're going to find.
It's the best looking version I've seen.
Yeah.
And I have someone where they upscaled it to 4K, and it doesn't look that good.
Yeah.
So,
well, I imagine, right? Because it was shot for a television film, right? So
it was shot like a movie. It was shot. Okay. They shot it in the first one. They shot it with Aeroflex 35 millimeter. The second one was shot in Panavision. And and that's another thing. We got cheated here in America and Canada. It was a movie everywhere but here.
Okay.
It was theatrically released in every country, and they billed it like the next Star Wars movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Back in the day. So let's go back to the day. So I imagine you and I are very similar age. I was 13 when Return of the Jedi came out. And so, I'm 50. I was right there with you. You were a kid in California. I'm guessing you were a Star Wars fan.
I was a big Return of the Jedi fan. Maybe I was a late bloomer, but I didn't see Empire Strikes Back or the original Star Wars.
Okay.
And back then, it's not like you could pop in a video cassette, because that was just coming out at that time.
Right.
And the Star Wars movies, I don't think they came out on VHS until the mid to late 80s, I think.
Right.
They might have come on Laserdisc. But George said they would never come on VHS, by the way. They were saying that when we were at Lucasfilm. My movies, you have to go to the movie theater to see Star Wars, because he did not want to release it, because you know how he is about technology.
Sure. Yeah.
And I don't blame him. But so I was I knew I was working on one of the biggest things probably, and it became the biggest thing I ever did as an actor.
Right.
For sure. But I was well aware of it because I saw Return of the Jedi 10, 15 times. In a movie theater the summer before in 83. And I was 13 too, so we are the same age.
We're right there. Mm-hmm. So now you were you doing commercial work? What kind of acting were you doing at the time when you heard about this opportunity, or was this your first role?
It wasn't my first role. I had done about 6 or 7 bit parts, small roles. Okay. I was on Webster. Remember the television series?
I remember Webster. Yeah. That's right. You were the football player, right? Is that right?
Yep. Yeah. I was in episode 3 in the first season. And what else did I do? I did a movie with Diane Cannon and Barry Newman called Having It All. It was where Diane Cannon had 2 husbands, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, and I was her nephew.
Okay.
And that was directed, coincidentally, by Edward Zwick, who directed Glory and Samurai. He became a very famous director. That was one of the first films that he did.
Oh, wow.
I did, what else did I do? I did a pilot that did not get picked up, but it was made by the guy who did Chips and was doing that stuff. and it was called The Circle Family. We only did a pilot, and I was Barrett Oliver from the Never Ending Story. I was his friend at school.
Okay.
And if it had become a series, I would have had a series. Mm-hmm. And right before the Ewok movie, I went to network on another show where I was supposed to play Jason Bateman's sidekick. Called, I think it only lasted one season, and I didn't get the role. And then right after that, I got Caravan of Courage. They thought I looked too much like Jason. We had a similar look.
I could kind of see that. Yeah.
At that time. Yeah. And so they chose this dumpier looking, more friend that was dumpier and heavier, chubby friend. So I wasn't. And ironically, when I got the Ewok movie, I was too chubby, and they said, "Can you please lose some weight?" So that's kind of
wow,
an interesting story. But I almost got that movie. It was called "It's Your Move." Jason Bateman had that series, and and I went to network, and he was in there, and it was just between me and that kid got it. So good for him. But it only lasted a year. So.
Yes, and his isn't being re-released on Disney Plus right now. That's right. That's right. So tell me about the process to get the role, and was it I've seen you have on your, I think it's one of your websites, you have the your audition tape.
I do. I got that.
Very cool.
I was lucky enough to get that from John Cordy, who him and Tom Smith recorded it here in Los Angeles. And they asked to record me because they said I was the right look, and they wanted the executive producer to see me on video. Okay. I couldn't be there. And I didn't know it was George Lucas. Okay. So when I went out for this audition, it was a same day audition. My agent called my dad and said, "Oh, it's for an after school special. It's a 1 hour after school special. It's have him dressed like it's for some tough kid. So have him dressed like a bully, and you're not going to have to read. You don't have to go by and pick up the script, or we call it sides. You don't have to go by and pick up the script. You just want to meet and see if you're right for the part." And then after they met me, they liked my look. So they said, would you read? We'll give you some time. And I said, on one condition, if I could do my monologue. And that's the monologue you were talking about. Okay. Which got me the role, because George saw that, and he saw a kid crying. Yeah. So later, when I watched the behind the scenes of The Phantom Menace, I said, well, maybe that's why George picked me, because Anakin, that young kid who got the part for Anakin, he was crying too. So George he's a softie. You know? He goes for the tears. That's a little tip for any actors out there listening who may read for one of George's movies one day, should that ever happen. Just go and cry, and you're in. You're in. So you found out you got it, and when did you find out it was a Star Wars project? I kind of didn't get it from that one sides, but a couple weeks later, we did a screen test up in Northern California, and they flew me up there to see if they wanted Aubrey Miller, who played Sindel, my younger sister, they wanted to see how well we worked together and meshed, and they wanted to make sure she could do it because she was only 4 years old. Right. They also wanted to make sure she wasn't afraid of an Ewok as well. So they brought an Ewok out on a stick and of course she ran up and hugged it. She thought it was a teddy bear. So it was cute. And we did these scenes. We did 3 or 4 scenes, and I knew what Ewoks were. So then I knew what I was doing. At that point, I kind of knew it. I knew it, and I thought, well, this is something to do with Star Wars. And we auditioned all day long. Then they went in some other room, I think maybe to talk with George. And later I heard George had already picked us. Okay. That Tom Smith and John Cordy wanted to see how we worked together and see how Aubrey, if she could handle it because she was young. So they had some reservations, but George had picked myself and Aubrey already. Okay. He already said that we that's what I learned later. And they came out and said, "Congratulations, you got the role." And the way the word travels in this town, by the time I got home from the short plane ride, like 45 minutes from San Francisco to LA, I already had 2 messages congratulating me on getting the role.
We have an incoming transmission from the Trade Federation.
This is Jason Fry. You're listening to Around the Galaxy.
There's a lot of action for a kid in that movie. There's a lot of, running and fighting and that sort of thing. Was there any special preparation, or did they just what was the approach on set? Did they just kind of turn you loose, or?
No, there definitely was preparation. They hired a trainer. What little time they had, I went over and trained. His name was Bob Yerkes.
Okay.
And Bob Yerkes used to train all the stars for back in the day, they had something called Circus of the Stars. Remember that?
Oh yeah, I remember that from the
so he would. So he was the guy responsible for training other celebrities for that show, and he had a circus set up in his backyard in Panorama City, near Reseda. Not Panorama City, I think it was Reseda. So it was on Parthenia Avenue. And they used to have car accidents because people would look up, oh, that's that thing when you fly back and forth. So I'd get up on that and fly back and forth on the. You're right. I did every stunt except for where Mace hits into the cage, the Gorax cage. That's the stunt coordinator, Mike Cassidy. He did that one part of the stunt, but they actually filmed another portion of it where I flew 14, 15 feet in the air, and they didn't use that part, but I actually did that as well.
Oh, wow.
I flew up and I guess maybe it didn't come out. Maybe they didn't shoot it right. I don't know. But yeah, it was me doing all the stunts, the running, the jumping, the underwater scenes in the Magic Pond that was shot in a pool where they just brought in this big piece of plexiglass and I had to swim underneath it and hold my breath and pound on it. Yeah, I did all that work.
That's pretty wild, especially again, first starring role rather. All the pressure was on there to bring that one home. So how did you, tell me about some of your favorite memories from the set? Cause from what I've read and what I've seen, George was he was on set fairly regularly, wasn't he?
He was fairly present on the first one. The second one, not as much, but the first one, he would come to the set at least once a week. He would at the time he was dating Linda Ronstadt, so she came one time. His daughter came to the set, Amanda Lucas, often. She used to talk in the middle of the scenes, asking me questions, and why is it a stupid rock, Eric? Stuff like that. After I threw it, and one day when they came to set, it was her first day in preschool. So he wanted to give his daughter gifts. So he asked, she didn't know that she thought Ewoks were real. So he wanted the Ewoks to give Amanda presents. So he asked everybody if they could please. George is about to arrive with Amanda Lucas. Can the Ewok Wranglers please get the costumes on the people so she doesn't see that they're not real? So they, it was an experience, and they of course were happy to oblige George, and they put their heads on, and the Ewok costume. They have heads, and they have. It's a body suit basically, except for the head, the hands, and the feet. Okay, that's the part that they have to put on.
Wow! And so, how many Ewoks were on set? It looks like the
main cast was Dan Frischman, who played Deej Warwick, which was Wicket's father. Tony Cox played Whittle Warwick, which was, if you remember Tony Cox, he's a great actor. He's had a great career. He was in Bad Santa, Me, Myself, and Irene. Debbie Lee Carrington played also Weechie, which is Wicket's older brother. Poor Debbie, she just passed away recently. Margarita Fernandez played Kank, which is the mystical Ewok that we got to travel with us. Kevin Thompson played Chukatrok. Okay. Who else? Bobby Bell played Logray, which to me, the Logray in the Ewok movie looks more like Tebow. It's like they changed the costume.
They weren't sure. Tebow, Logray, whatever. We'll just get him in the movie, right?
Okay, just make sure he has the headset thing on so he looks like a shaman, right? But they did that a lot at Lucasfilm. They would reuse stuff and just change it. Which is good. That's a great way to do it. If you got something that you could just reuse, why not? Yeah. So it was the main 6 little people. And then myself and Aubrey Miller, and we both had a photo double to do like shots of our hands or a lot of shots where you see us walking. I'm not in those shots. That's just a photo double. You can't see me. It's from a distance, and the person looked like me, so it's okay.
Now, you and Warwick became pretty good friends on set, right? You were given cameras. George had this idea that he wanted you to film something. Whatever happened to those that film, and do you still keep in touch with Warwick?
I do. I have the footage that we shot. In fact, about 2 hours worth of footage.
Oh, wow.
And I recently was in touch with Disney Plus, and they were interested enough that I sent them like a teaser. A teaser that's online with my monologue. I sent that to him and said, if you're really interested, why don't you do like they did with Disney Gallery for The Mandalorian, and let's do like a look back. And you could re-interview us, we could talk about how we made it, see if there's anything else new that people didn't know, maybe show footage of scenes that were deleted. There were quite a few scenes that were deleted from the first one. The second one, not as much there's not that many deleted scenes from the second one.
Right.
But the first one had quite a few different scenes that were reworked. And we had about 2 hours worth of footage. And the other part of your question, Warwick Davis and we haven't been in touch recently that much. We did stay in touch for a while after we made the movies. In fact, I went to London and I stayed with him at his home for a week I think it was over right after Christmas, and I spent the New Year with him 1 year.
That's great.
And we've sort of kept in touch. He had that footage, by the way, because when I went to London, he asked if he could make a copy of it, and I said, yes, send it back, but it took me 15 years to get it back from him. Talk about the making of. And we did one convention together in over in the Netherlands. So we did that convention. I said, where's my tape? And he goes, oh, I have it? I go, yeah, you do have it. Go look. And then suddenly he mailed it to me and I got it back. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
And we occasionally say hi. We send emails every couple of years or so, but we're not super in touch anymore. It's a shame because you're right. We were really, really good friends when we made the movie and for a few years after. And it just goes to show you should stay in touch with. But he was too busy having a very successful career.
Yeah.
And he has children and he's married and, life takes over. So
sure. Absolutely. Well, it's great that you were able to maintain that connection. And like you said, you do talk to him every now and then, which is great. So how did you respond to the movies? There's a certain campiness to both Ewok films that is beloved now, but at the time, I think much like even frankly, Phantom Menace for me, when I first saw it, it took me 20 years to really become a fan of it. And I've said that before, maybe not 20, but certainly wasn't my first viewing. And now the Ewok movies have become legendary. How did you respond to them at first? And how did you tell me about sort of how they aged for you as not just as being in them, but also your response to being in these films that have this sort of this relationship that has certainly evolved in the minds of the fans?
Well, I mean, these movies definitely have had there's been like a roller coaster. They've had the highs and lows, just like anything. And when they first came out, people were excited. They loved them.
Sure.
They were the Caravan of Courage, which was called the Ewok Adventure here originally. Mm-hmm. Caravan of Courage is the name that George gave it, by the way. It's his name for the overseas version.
Oh, all right.
Now it's kind of the acceptable name, and they released it on Disney Plus, but it was called the Ewok Adventure here.
All right.
It did very well. It was the second highest rated movie of the year. Over 65 million people watched it. So like the next day, even going back to school, I used to, during lunch, I would we'd play basketball when we had lunch with my friends.
Right.
And that Friday before, nobody was paying attention, but it aired that Sunday, not Friday before, like Wednesday, because it was Thanksgiving. But after the next Monday, the day after, suddenly there was 200 people around our court trying to ask me questions about the movie. Oh, you look so much taller on screen. Well, because I was working with little people, so of course I look taller.
Little people and a 4-year-old girl. You're gonna tower above that.
So I got all those stupid questions, and for I had my 15 minutes of fame. Everywhere I'd go, someone would stop and ask for an autograph. I'd be in a grocery store, and a mom would stop me and say, "Oh, my kids love your movie." And it was pretty positive feedback from the first one. In fact, ABC liked the rating so much because it was so highly rated. They wanted George to do a television series based on the Towani family. And he said, no, we're going to just do the movies. And by the way, we were supposed to do 3 Ewok movies. We were signed to do a trilogy originally.
All right. Wow.
And they picked up the second one. Then the third Ewok movie was in development. They wrote a script for it, but it only got one draft, and I don't know what it was about, but they shelved it. I understand there is one script for the third Ewok movie, but my fate as Mace Towani dying in the second movie was decided the weekend before, because basically George was doing these for his daughter who loved Ewoks. So he was making these movies for his daughter Amanda, and that's great. He's a cool dad. Who wouldn't want to have a dad that would make a movie for me, basically. Plus, it was a way to expand the Ewoks as well. And the networks were after him, please do something for television. That's why he did the first one. And he goes, no, I'm only going to do movies. I'm not ready to do television series. And so we did the second one, and Amanda and him were watching Heidi the weekend before the writing session.
Okay.
So Heidi is about a girl, Shirley Temple. She's orphaned, and she has this hermit character who's taking care of her. That's why that movie ended up like that. And Aubrey Miller was with her the same age as Amanda Lucas. So she related more with Sindel than she did with Mace. In fact, I'm not sure which Wheat brother told me this, but they said if Amanda had been a teenager, it probably would have been a Mace movie.
Right.
So, but that's just the way it goes, and fate decided it, and I was real upset for a long time.
I imagine, yeah.
Because you go from being the lead in a movie. I worked every day. I was the only actor that was on set every day. In fact, the last day of filming, it was just me for that underwater scene.
Okay.
So, it was very, and I was originally told by Aubrey Miller's mother. She called my dad and said, "Sorry to tell you this, Gene, but the whole family's dead in the movie. Only Sindel survived." So I was told that I wasn't even going to be in the movie. Wow. But apparently somehow in the writing, the drafts, they said, "Oh, we got to explain this a little bit," instead of just seeing them dead. So hence I got excited. I said, "Oh, if you're going to kill my character off, I'm going to be a badass. I'm going to kill as many marauders as I can." So I got excited and pumped up about it, even though it was a smaller role.
Sure.
Please excuse this interruption from the Trade Federation. Roger, roger.
This is Eric Walker, and you're listening to Around the Galaxy with Pete Fletzer. Then later, as it went along, I started hearing this story about how a lot of the Star Wars fans hated the movies.
Right.
They hated Ewoks. So they didn't even like Ewoks in Return of the Jedi. Yeah. And it's those fans that didn't like him from Return of the Jedi that didn't like the Ewok movies either.
But, it's interesting because I always think about in 1983, I was 13 years old, and my dad, who is the reason I'm into science fiction and horror and films and all that sort of thing, I remember him and his best friend coming out of Jedi like, those Ewoks, they're clearly there to sell toys. And I was like, I didn't have a problem with them. I was 13 years old. I didn't have a problem with them. So I understand that. So it's interesting that you're saying that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? People who were like, nope, the Ewok movie, the Ewoks are for the kids. And then it's a movie starring kids. So I'm sorry I cut you off, but it's a really interesting point that I can see that direct connection.
Well, I mean, if now that Disney's done all these other Star Wars stories, we were the first. So they tried to pretend like we weren't, and they said Rogue One was the first, but that's and also Solo. Right? No, we were the first. This is the way I tell people to look at these movies. You don't go into these movies thinking you're going to watch Empire Strikes Back, because they're not Star Wars movies. They're Star Wars stories. So they're part of the expanding Star Wars universe. So if you look at them that way, and you also look at them that they're great movies for children to watch, then you have no problem with them. Yep.
Yeah. Well, it'll make you feel good to know that when the day that these were released on Disney Plus, I was mentioning before, I have this 8-year-old son, and we watched them, and his first reaction was, "What is this?" And then he refused to go to bed till we watched both of them. So he was all in, and it's so 37 years later, it still works with that audience that it was aimed at. And
that's what George was doing. He was making them for his daughter anyway. So they were made for children. And at the time, those effects were very revolutionary. They're not as much anymore, but it was the last stop motion type of photography they ever did, ILM. Yeah. So, they were great. They're good for the time. And, I watched the movie. There's scenes I don't like, when I'm overacting, because I'm always going to be critical of my own work.
Sure.
But overall, if I had to critique the first one, I would say I probably don't like 5% of my performance there. There's a couple scenes I don't like, but overall, I think I did a decent job. The second one, hands down. Actually, the second one is my favorite movie, even though I'm not the lead in it. I like the action because that's who I am. And that one had more of a Star Wars feel than the first one because most of that movie was also directed. Second unit was directed by Joe Johnston. So a lot of people don't know that.
Wow. But I'll tell you what, that first 10 minutes of the second movie is brutal. Like
it is.
You die, your dad dies, your mother dies, Ewoks are dying, Marauders are falling all over.
But no Ewoks die. Go watch it. You see them like getting captured.
Okay.
But one of the things George Lucas promised Amanda Lucas was an Ewok would never die ever on screen again. He promised her after Chukatrak died because it made her cry. When Mace was upset, she cried when Chukatrak died. So he promised her. So instead, let's just kill the whole family. No,
apparently George's daughter doesn't care if people die. It's those Ewoks that she wipe out the whole family. Well, that's fun. Do you ever
got a lot of flack for that? If you go back and you look at the reviews at the time, it got really bad reviews. The second one, and it was really low in the ratings. It didn't do well at all.
Well, I mean, it's funny. We still talk about, it's this poor kid. Like, you get attached to this family in the first movie, and in the first 10 minutes, you lose them all other than a Sindel, which is,
well, I don't think just goes to show you, George Lucas does it the way he wants to do it. He's not going to listen to anybody else. But again, I like George's style. I like his sense of directing. If he ever does movies again, even if it's for his friends like Spielberg and all that stuff. George, if you ever run across this, I want to compose the music for any films you do.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. So you have Eric Walker Music is your another one of your channels, and tell me a little bit about your musical style and what you've been doing in the music world.
Well, I started getting into music in high school. I went to the LA County High School for the Performing Arts, which is like the fame school in New York, but here in Los Angeles. And I was in the first graduating class here in Los Angeles. So it was an experiment. The school's still there. And other very well-known musicians and actors, just to name a few, Josh Groban went to our school, Fergie from the Black Eyed Peas, Jenna Elfman, Anthony Anderson was in my class. He's our age, from Blackish. And in fact, Anthony Anderson did one of my first student films. His first role as an actor was in my student film in high school.
Oh, wow. So,
and I ran into him a few years ago, and he goes, I had that movie that we did on my resume for years. He was like laughing. I go, okay, that's great, Anthony. But yeah, when I went to the LA County High School for the Performing Arts, I would go down into the music, the music section and play on the piano, because we would have these really long lunches. Because we'd go do our general education stuff, like stuff we hate, in the morning. And then we'd do our arts in the afternoon, but we had like a 2-hour lunch in between. So I'd go eat lunch, and then I'd spend another hour just going in. I'm self-taught. And I would also have other people that were in the music department show me stuff, show me how to play. So they were helping me too. But I was in the theater department, but they have theater, music, visual arts, and dance. They have all these different sections. And so I did that, and I kept learning. So eventually I got a keyboard. I started learning, just learned more and more. And I wanted to do a group, an electronic music group, kind of like Tangerine Dream. I don't know if you know who they are.
Yeah, sure.
Or Jean-Michel Jarre, or like Vangelis. And that's my style of music that I compose, as well as being very atmospheric and cinematic as well. A lot of my music comes to me in dreams, and then I wake up and I go, it's like it's given to me by God, these melodies. And I get up, and sometimes if I'm lazy, I'll hum the melody in my tape recorder. And then if I'm not lazy, I get up and go into where my music studio is, and I'll at least lay something down. Right. It depends on how strong the dream is and the vision. And so my first album came out around 2012, I think it was released. And it went to number 38 on the iTunes chart in the UK. So I did very well with it. And I said, well, I'm making money on this. Let me do another album. So now I have 3 albums out.
Wow.
And the last one, Brand New Day, I was up for a Grammy, so I can't complain.
And it is amazing with technology. I mean, the theme song to this show is recorded by me and a friend of mine that I met online, and we've been through the pandemic. We've been recording music together, which
That's
is
awesome.
just
I was
so
jamming. I was going to ask you.
I'll send you a link.
Yeah.
We actually we're on iTunes as well. So
awesome.
Yeah, and it's great that you've been able to go and pursue other pieces of things that you love. Now, you are a Star Wars fan, as we talked about earlier on. And did you follow Star Wars into the prequels, and did you maintain your same level of being a fan and into the Disney era? How's your? I mean, obviously, you're still a collector.
Yes.
You're a big collector. Tell me a little bit about your Star Wars fan journey when you moving on after having been a part of it, which is a journey none of us have.
Well, I mean, I always was a big geek, a nerd, a fan. It's not just Star Wars. I'm a big Star Trek nut. I'm at all, so I started the All for Sci-Fi channel, the All for Sci, because it's not just about one fandom. I'm about all of it. So I'm just so much a geek about that. And, I think that the prequels it didn't enhance me being a better Star Wars fan. I think the Disney era, believe it or not, and also being heavily influenced by a good friend of mine now who actually owns Order 66 Toys.
Okay,
his name is Jeff, and getting to meet those people at Order 66 Toys, which what a great name for a toy store, right? Order 66. and them, they've really, and then being a part of this community on Facebook it's called the Community of Star Wars Collectors, the CSWC, with Steve Spoltor. That group, we all feel like a family. We all treat each other like brothers and sisters. That has become bigger in my life in the last few years because that's what Star Wars is about. It's about family. Disney is, and again, I'm giving them credit because they did Galaxy's Edge.
Right.
They did stuff that I think George wanted to do, but he didn't have the time to do it. And that's a good reason. The best thing George ever did, and people will probably argue with me, and I don't want to start a fight, an argument, was sell this to Disney.
Yeah.
Have you been to Galaxy's Edge?
I was in Galaxy's Edge in LA literally like a week and a half before pandemic lockdown. So I was very lucky to sneak in there just before
Did you go on the Rise of the Resistance ride?
I could not make it in. When
you go on that, you will live the dream that you never thought you would live. It's like literally being in a Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
In real life. It's amazing.
I agree too. Again, as a Star Wars fan, for me, the reason Galaxy's Edge works is because I'm immersed in Star Wars. I don't care if it's prequels, sequels, or original trilogy. I'm there. I'm in that universe. They do such a great job. Disney just does such a great job.
They made, and I didn't think they could pull that off, but they made it so once you're inside that park, you go back far enough that you you think you are on a different planet.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
I think my favorite thing is the sound effects pumped in where like literally you'll hear a ship, and there were times I looked up like I was going to see an X-Wing literally coming from the sky.
And they had plans to make things with drones. They were getting ready to introduce some stuff to make that even more so. I don't know if they're going to bring that out in the future, but they were talking about introducing that, and then the pandemic happened. Yeah. So they have other ideas still to go forward with this.
And it's Disney. They're going to find new and exciting ways to make it even bigger and better.
Hey, we have one more interruption from the Trade Federation. Roger.
Eric, I do this thing on the show where I ask 10 questions, and they're not trivia, and there's no wrong answers, but they're just sort of 10 sort of fun questions. So if you're down with it, I want to throw them at you.
Yeah, go for it.
Cool. All right. So what is your favorite Star Wars movie, TV show, or book?
Empire Strikes Back.
That is a very common answer, and I think it's for a very good reason.
Got an actor's director directing it, Aaron Kirshner. So yeah.
So name an actor other than Eric Walker that you would like to see in a Star Wars movie, and what kind of character would you like them to be?
I would like to see the guy that they keep saying needs to play Thrawn. I'd like to see him play Thrawn. Benedict
Cumberbatch.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'd like to see him play Thrawn. Yeah,
I could definitely see that, and I definitely want to see Thrawn in live action. And I think,
I was excited to see. I was very happy to see Rosario Dawson do Ahsoka. So even though there was a whole thing about Ashley, and I love Ashley, but it's a live action thing.
Yeah.
That was more of a alien type of creature, so she fit the bill. Where Bo-Katan was easier because it looked more like her.
Yeah.
So Katie Sackhoff. So.
And I think one of the things that Rosario needs to get a lot of credit for is she clearly studied the movements, and there were times where she captured little subtle things that were picked up in animation, and she brought it to life. And I love her portrayal of, and I'm with you.
It's an older Ahsoka too.
Yeah.
It's not Ashley played a great Ahsoka when the entire time she is Ahsoka Tano. So don't get me wrong, but I just like the portrayal that she did for sure. 100%. And I'm excited to see the Ahsoka series. So I'm excited to see all of it. The Book of Boba Fett, the Kenobi series.
It's funny. I always say, like, if you told 14-year-old me that one day in the future there was going to be this much Star Wars, I wouldn't have believed it. And you made a great point about the best thing that George did was sell it to Disney. And in fact, I saw it recently on Twitter. There was a conversation about it was almost a hot take that the best thing that happened to Star Wars was that it was purchased by Disney, because there are those that aren't 100% thrilled. And I understand their perspective. I don't agree with it, but I do agree that without, I'm 100% behind the fact that without Star Wars as a property being in the hands of somebody like Disney, we wouldn't be in this embarrassment of riches of great, not just good Star Wars, but great Star Wars coming out.
But look at the intelligence level of Disney. Not just what they did with Star Wars, and what they did with Marvel.
Yeah.
And they let Kevin Feige handle that. So the fact that they sit back and they come from a filmmaker's perspective and they let the company do their thing is why they're so successful. That's in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And I think Kathleen Kennedy doesn't get enough credit. She's doing a great job. I mean, everybody wants to nitpick everything. They did that with George on the prequels, and you start to see how good they are years later.
Right.
Kathleen Kennedy was smart enough to let Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau do what they're doing, because they're big Star Wars fans. And John, if you ever see this, or Dave, and you want Mace back somehow, maybe he didn't die, you could change it for sure. Or if you want to say Mace is dead, that's fine, and you want me to put on a stormtrooper costume, I'll do that too. Just so you could say you put Mace back there.
That's right.
Whatever.
Hey, Luke told us that no one's ever really gone, right? So
that is true. I mean, look at the Book of Boba Fett. I mean, I'm sure Mace could. What if his life monitor just blew up, right? And that's it.
Right.
His hand was injured, and he spent 20 years trying to get off that. He went crazy because he was around Ewoks for 20 years. So,
you're right. Let's twist it. Like, he went on and he became a bounty hunter himself. And all right, I think we're making a connection here. I think that's good.
That's true. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. To see what happens when you get a Star Wars nerd on the show. I interrupt your questions. Go ahead.
Hey, this is why it's called the talk show. We just talk and we enjoy everything Star Wars. It's great.
That's
cool.
It is.
That's great. All right. So the next question is, if you could own any critter from Star Wars as a pet, what would it be?
I'm not going to say an Ewok because that's cliche. I was an Ewok.
People would expect that, Eric. People would expect that.
Grogu is too easy to do. If I could own a pet, I mean, I like tauntauns. I would like to.
There you go.
Ride on one of those. Let's say that a tauntaun.
That's a great call. I like that one. I like that.
or a dewback as well. And who doesn't want a dewback to ride around Tatooine or other areas?
Yeah, it's funny. I've done 113 episodes, and I've changed up these questions, and I've just recently added that question.
Yeah.
And last week,
question. You get so many answers. Yeah.
But it's funny that you can get a million answers. But last week, Jason Fry, who is the author of the Last Jedi novelization, he said dewback as well. So maybe the question isn't as broad as I thought.
Or a bantha too, right?
A bantha's nice. Yeah. You need a big yard for a bantha, but I feel like,
So we probably should stick to something small then.
Stick to something small. Hey, I think a dewback. I feel like a dewback is probably like.
Hey, well, this would be cliche because they took it and put it in the Mandalorian. But who doesn't want a blurg, right?
Oh yeah, right.
That came from the Ewok movies. Blurgs are smaller. Yeah, let's have a blurg. Yeah.
There you go. That allows you to sort of stick with where you came from and make that connection. I like that answer. We'll go with blurg. That's great. Yeah. So the next question is, Eric, what's your favorite Star Wars sound effect?
I mean, obviously, a lightsaber sound is the easiest one. The other one would be, a laser when the laser blast goes off. We on the movie set, Mace had his blaster.
Right.
So yeah, I would say a blaster rifle sound.
I would agree with that. I like that answer because, not only is it iconic, but first of all, for the simplicity of how he found the sound, but he literally changed the sound of movie laser guns forever with the sounds.
That's the one is that the one with the tweaky, right?
That's the one with the power line.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
He just hit it with a wrench, and the rest is history. So
yeah, he created some great sound effects. What a great!
It was amazing. Who is your favorite Star Wars droid?
I'm gonna buck the norm, and I'm gonna say R4. I'm not gonna say R2D2.
Excellent.
So,
I like that one. That's I love the whole Kenobi connection to droid. I would love to understand what R2D2 is really saying when he says, "I don't remember ever owning a droid before," and like R2 is like, "Hey, you didn't own me, but you could at least recognize me, right?" Well, kind of saved your life a bunch of times, dude. So, what's your favorite non-Star Wars movie?
Wow. God, you're going to does it have to be sci-fi?
No, it can be any movie. It can be whatever you like.
I'm gonna say a movie. I'm gonna say the first one that comes to my head from being a young person. And I like comedy, so I'm gonna say A Fish Called Wanda.
Oh, what a great movie! That so quotable. Yeah. Oh man, I love that movie. I mean, you got John Cleese and you got Kevin Kline, and of course you have Jamie Lee Curtis, who, if you and I are same age, Jamie Lee Curtis played a very important part in our lives. That's a great movie, man. Now I'm gonna have to watch that. That's great. So there's a question that I wasn't sure I was going to go because I didn't know anything about you until we started this interview. What is your favorite Star Wars collectible? The one piece that you have in your collection that is sort of your, and it could be something that you can't buy. It could be something that only you have, or it could be just a cool, off the shelf thing.
When it comes to like lightsabers, I want to say I built a lightsaber in Savi's workshop.
Okay.
My elemental lightsaber is one of my favorite ones when it comes to lightsabers. And I also just recently got the Darth Revan one. I'm really, from Force Effects, I really like that lightsaber. I got a lot of them, though, because I'm a big collector. So that's not a fair question.
It's a tough question, yeah.
And I really like the different, the holocrons.
Okay. I can see
I have the Jedi one and the Sith one. I love those, too. Especially when you put them together and they become the Bendu.
Right. So what is it? I love trying to analyze this. What is it about Star Wars I mean, there's collectibles for everything, right? For Marvel and whatever. But what is it about Star Wars collectibles, do you think?
There's so many of them. The universe that George Lucas created is just so enormous.
Yeah.
So there's something for everybody. Whether you like the holocrons I talked about, whether you like Grogu, whether you like lightsabers, whether you like blasters, I mean, whether you like ships, here's the skiff from Return of the Jedi, Jabba's skiff.
Oh,
so no matter what it is you have, and I mean, even the characters, there's just so many of them, like the walrus guy right here.
Yep.
I mean, speaking of this is back in a Kenner day.
Yeah,
there's a gentleman named Stephen Geddes. He's the guy who did the original sculpt on this.
Uh-huh.
He also did the original the very first do back, and he did Han the Hoth Han. He's doing a Mace Towani sculpt right now.
Oh, he is. Nice.
So we're going to do a very limited run. And that's the other thing. People are trying to get a petition going for Hasbro or Kenner to do action figures from these Ewok movies. That would be great. Mace had a lot of accessories. He would be a great figure.
Yeah. And do you, speaking of,
maybe we'll start a petition.
Start a petition. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go for it. Go. All right. So my next question here for you is, if you could own any spaceship or vehicle from the Star Wars universe, what would you want to own?
The Razor Crest from The Mandalorian.
Yes.
That's a bad ship. I almost cried when it got blown up.
But yeah, I agree. I think it's a great classic Star Wars design, and it's a cool ship. And I as much as I hated to see it go, I like that they weren't afraid to kill a character, because in Star Wars the ships are often characters. That's
right.
So, cool. All right, good. What is your favorite Star Wars moment?
When Princess Leia says, "I love you," and Han says, "I know."
It's a great moment. Classic moment. Good. Well, then the last question is, what is your go-to or favorite Star Wars quote?
Well, I like it when people say, "May the Force be with you," but I like it when they say, "May the Force be with you always." I like it when you say "always."
Yeah.
Instead of just "May the Force be with you," because it's more personable.
I like that. I agree with that. May the Force be with you is just sort of like, see you later. But,
ciao.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because even Din Djarin said it, had no idea what the Force was. So it was sort of meaningless, right?
That's another phrase I like is, "This is the way."
Yeah. Yeah.
Or like he said is, "I could take you in warm or I could take you in cold." I like that line too.
Yes, excellent. Well, Eric, this has been a ton of fun. I really appreciate you spending some time with us and telling us. You really, I will look at the Ewok movies a little bit differently. I honestly was disappointed that Mace did not make it past the first 10 minutes of the second one, but now I know why. And it could be changed. So now that you guys are changing things, go ahead and change that. Yes, right. Hey, like you said, we didn't see him. We just heard he died. He just heard he died.
The light monitor light went out, and you saw a big explosion in the background.
Yeah, it could be batteries. You gotta. Well, Eric, thank you so much, and hopefully we'll have you back on again sometime.
So, I can't wait. Thank you for having me.
Well, that wraps it up for this episode of Around the Galaxy. Thanks to our guests, and thank you for listening. If you had fun, please like, subscribe, share, rate, and review it. If you really liked it and would like to become a part of our virtual live studio audience when we record, please head on over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/ATGcast. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and all your social media at ATGcast. Our music is brought to us by the band Silver Collared Knob, who can be found wherever you find music. Around the Galaxy is copyright 2021 Pete in the Seat Studios.